Hey everybody, happy St. Patrick's Day. So normally we've done these happy hours on Thursdays over the last couple weeks, but we couldn't pass up doing a happy hour on what is such a wonderful holiday for cracking a good beer open. So we're going to be getting Starpoint on tonight. We're going to try a couple different IPAs and learn a little bit about what's going on over at Starpoint. So as usual, usually takes a couple minutes. We'll get Starpoint in here. We'll get Tim up on the video from Starpoint. And as we go, if you have any questions, anything else, feel free to throw it in the chat, and we'll get to them. And here we go. Let's see if this works. Hey, Tim.
Hi. Can you see us?
I can see Ken. I think I got him center at the bottom there. I can't see you, Tim. You're kind of out of the screen a little bit. There we go.
There you can see Ken pretty good.
How's it going, Ken?
I'll just put my little head in here.
How you doing?
We're trying to put a little bit apart. Although he's vaccinated and I'm vaccinated, but we're just playing the part.
No, I love to hear it. I'm waiting for my day when I can make my appointment.
Okay. Let me turn it up. Now we're too far away, but I can't hear. Hi, we're going to let you look at Ken for a minute.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, Ken.
Hi.
I'm gonna get this first beer out.
He's trying to give me something to set it up again. We're just gonna look at Ken. You guys talk.
So Ken, I'm pouring my first beer over here, but I guess, and we'll get into some more details. But why don't you give everybody just kind of a quick introduction to you and Tim and to Starpoint, just so we have kind of a starting point.
Well, I'm Tim. I started the thing back in 2012, and Ken's been working with us a little over 2 years now.
About 2 years.
About 2 years. And Ken's head brewer. He's got it all back into ship shape. It's all doing great. He's making great beer. So that's what we're doing. It's mostly IPA focused. The quick story about Starpoint is I went to Sonoma in 2005, ended up at Russian River. There wasn't anything like that here. And so I sat there and drank Pliny and Blind Pig for like a week and then came back here. And I was home brewing a little, and so I spent about a year and a half trying to make a beer that was like that. And I did, and we used to call it Morning Wood. That's not too cool, so we don't call anything that anymore. And then we turned it into Surfin Buddha, and that's more like the Blind Pig. And so that's the beer we started with. And it won a bunch of little homebrew competitions. And I knew a bunch of people from the Lagunitas brewery, and they tasted it and told me that I needed to start a brewery here. And so I did. And the rest is the history. We opened up here. It's almost 5 years now. It'll be 5 years in May that we started building out. And so officially opened in January 4 years ago. Yeah, that's it.
That's awesome, yeah. And so I've got Surfin Buddha here, which is as you mentioned, kind of the embodiment of the West Coast IPA, the classic West Coast IPA, and this is definitely a beer that I've been familiar with, before tonight. It's one I think that if you're in the Triangle, you can find pretty easily, especially definitely pre-COVID. But yeah, I mean, there are not as many people making IPAs like this these days.
No, nobody makes a clear IPA. Back when I started, I made a beer called Duh, which we're going to have next, I think. And that one back then I was using whole cone hops, and it was a pain in the butt to get it to get the right aroma and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I started weighting down the bags because I put them in bags, and that made a big difference. And then I started changing the proteins a little bit. So I got some rye and some wheat. I used torrefied wheat and stuff then, and but it would make it hazy. And so I spent a lot of time trying to find a clarifying agent that would make it nice and clear, because back then you didn't want a hazy beer. It was a problem. Nowadays it's like, how quick can you make a hazy beer? And so
I was
now,
about to say, I was like, if you'd started that process just a few years later, you would have saved yourself a lot of heartbreak and just stuck with it in its original form.
exactly. So does still clear, because we put binding agent in it, vegan friendly binding agent, and then but we've started experimenting with the hazies too. We have the Tilt, which was the first one we made. We've got this Ida haze that we make with 100% Idaho 7. And then we made the Hindsight 2020, which is a limited edition, which we're almost out of now.
Yeah.
And that was the one with the Brew one and the Sabro hop. So it's kind of guava based and a different kind of concoction than normal. But we're going to work on a new one probably next week that we're going to try to work out to, another hazy.
Nice. Well, I'm going to play. So it's St. Patrick's Day, and I've never tried this with an IPA before, but I have a little bit of green food dye here, and I'm going to see if I can make myself a green IPA just to get in the spirit. So
that will definitely work.
Let's see how this goes. There we go. So all right, now we've got the green Buddha.
There you go.
Yeah, that's pretty green. What's that river in Chicago?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Actually, early in my professional life, I worked in Chicago for a few months, and everybody would be like, "You have to be here on St. Patrick's Day when they dye the river."
Oh yeah, I saw it earlier today. I'm like, there it is. They got the boats mixing it all up.
So, guys, tell me a little bit. So, obviously, Starpoint started in Carrboro, right? With I think it was just a brewing location at that point, and now you guys are very closely tied in with Beer Study. The new location in Durham is in Beer Study. Talk to me a little bit about that relationship and just kind of how that works, because it's a little bit of a unique setup versus a lot of breweries.
Yeah, we were kind of crazy. We were the first ones to try to put together a couple different partnering businesses. And the first place I looked at, we were going to have a whole bunch of people and another brewery and all kinds of things, but that kind of fell through because of real estate dealings.
Yep.
And so I drove by this place, and it used to be a lamp fix-it shop. And it was up for rent, and I talked to JD to see if he was interested in going in on it, because I used to work in bars, and I'm not really. I wanted to spend my time working on the beer. I didn't want to spend my time working on a bar or a place to sell beer. So it just was a partnership, because I had already made lots of beer that Beer Study liked and sold a lot of. And so I had to go talk to the ABC lawyers and make sure we could do it. And I had to go actually stand in front of the North Carolina ABC Commission and promise them we'd do certain things and make sure everything was happy, so that we could actually operate this way. And I think we were the first ones to ever do that, combine two beer-centric businesses into one place. I know Glass Jug has expanded to where they've got a bottle shop and along with their brewery, and they're opening another bottle shop too, I think.
They're opening up a tap room.
Yeah, another tap room bottle shop.
Yeah. So the I think they were opening end of March. I think 29th maybe. Yeah. But huh?
So basically, the trick is, it was kind of it wasn't easy to get everybody to agree to let us do it. But now that we actually set a precedent and all the ABC people are happy about what we did, it's actually easier for people to do this kind of thing.
Yeah, and so I guess that's an important thing because I don't know that everybody understands that. So it is two separate businesses, Starpoint Brewing and Beer Study, that operate in the same location.
Sure is.
Yeah.
I sell them beer on a wholesale account, so we sell as a wholesaler to Beer Study, and then it's just really convenient for them because if they run out, I can give it to them instantly. So,
It doesn't have to travel very far.
no. And I don't charge them for keg deposits, stuff like that, because they're pretty much in the same building. So I'm not worried they're going to disappear.
And are you brewing everything in Durham these days?
Yeah. Actually Starpoint, the place in Clarence Drive is still functioning. It's used mostly as a research facility with in arrangement with precision fermentation.
Oh, very cool.
They use it to test their equipment and do quality control and all that stuff.
Oh, nice. Yeah, well, I definitely have a soft spot for the Durham location. So I live about 10 minutes away in South Durham, and in those wonderful, magical pre-COVID times, Beer Study was definitely a regular Friday evening spot for my wife and I to stop in at, especially because you guys were, dog friendly indoors, which is I think a rarity for a lot of places. And yeah, we spent a lot of Friday nights sitting at Beer Study, getting dinner from Nuvo Taco or Q Shack across the street, and that was, I think, really where I first got exposed to Starpoint beer.
Yeah.
And then started seeing, definitely Surfin Buddha, started seeing that popping up. I think once you guys started canning it more regularly and putting that out there.
Yeah, we were lucky. Dirty Bull wanted to get a canning line, and I said, yeah, let's just share it. And they were like, great. And since they're such nice guys, it worked out real well.
So how do two breweries that are 10, 15 minutes apart, how do you share a canning line?
How do we do that? I go get a U-Haul and I go over there and pick it up and bring it back here. And then as soon as we're done, we take it back over there. And then I just schedule with Matt and Chris to make sure that they don't need it when we need it.
Yeah.
We try to do 2-day runs. So we basically have it for 3 days over here every couple of times a month. And then the rest of the time they have a spot to store it. We're kind of cramped, so it's easier to keep it over there. And that's it.
Yeah,
and
that makes
had to get
sense.
used to it because it's a whole different. It's a critical persnickety machine.
Yeah, I've heard that it's quite the challenge once you finally get one into the facility to really fine tune your process around canning and doing it the right way and keeping DSO and things like that down. And it takes a little extra work to get that done.
Yeah, Matt was good because he got a Beverly to check for DO levels, which is very important, and then ATP meter so we can make sure that it's actually not causing any kind of problems. And Matt being a chemist himself, that helps a lot. And then basically the tricks are making sure your beer is cold enough, carved correctly, and that everything's clean and the lid thing works. Because that's the biggest problem. The lids come down all over.
Yeah. So I guess at this point, where we are with COVID and the world, I mean, how much are you guys canning versus selling on draft at this point? Because I feel like, at least in my perception around the triangle pre-COVID, like you guys were pretty heavy on kind of the draft side of things, and especially, I mean, Starpoint I think always had 6 or 7 at least Starpoint beers on tap.
Yeah, definitely the draft was our model, and that's what we wanted to do. And when COVID happened, we're like, oh, everything's got to go in cans now, because there's nobody selling drafts anymore. And I mean, very rarely. It's picking up though. It definitely has started picking up with the weather. People are able to sit around outside and drink beer, and they were able to do draft outside and stuff in up to November or something last year. So that wasn't so bad. A couple things that helped a lot to get everybody going and business kind of settling. Highwire started having these pallet sales, and that was big.
Yep.
And then Dirty Bull took over when Highwire started offering it to other people, and so that worked out great. Then we started working on some, grocery type accounts so we could sell more package, and that's worked out great for us too. So it's actually put us in a better position in the long run, because now that our drafts are picking up, which is what we want to do, because the beer is fresher, it's not going through another process, it's not getting, it's easier, better to deal with as far as working.
And better margin.
Well, yeah, the margins are better, but not that much better. I mean, with some of the prices going on with canned beer these days, I'm like, whoa. And we try to keep our prices down as low as we can.
Yeah.
Which is different than a lot of other things. I guess you're supposed to, if you're a businessman, you're supposed to sell it for as much as somebody will pay, but that's not really what we do.
Well, I think it all depends on the part of the market that you're trying to hit, and I think also to some extent just depends on the type of beers that you're selling, right? I mean, you have breweries out there that are brewing these crazy beers with extremely expensive ingredients in them and things that are really not meant to be, some of these bigger, kind of fruited sours and, pastry stouts and things, like, in my mind, they're not really meant for somebody to buy a 4 or 6 pack and drink all 4 to 6 of them. Not many people are going to repeat that, but something like Surfin Buddha, I mean, that's a balanced kind of crushable West Coast IPA. You could sit down with a 4-pack and run through them faster than you'd expect, and buy that in volume.
Yeah, that's the way us old people used to drink beer. Yeah.
It's a different world. So Ken, I guess before you came to Starpoint, kind of what was your kind of brewing background, and how did you end up here?
So back in college, the mid-'90s, one of my friends worked at American Brewmaster in Raleigh, and I would kind of help him homebrew a little. But being a college kid and having an apartment, I didn't think I could have the room to really homebrew. And then after college, I got my own place and started looking into it again. And another buddy of mine was doing all grain brewing. So me and another guy named Les Stewart decided to go out to this other friend's house and learn how to brew all grain. And as everyone knows, Les took it and ran with it. So that's how I started really home brewing. And then a few years ago, I found out that Wake Tech had their brewery program. So I did that, and with the internship, like my first internship, I did a couple of weeks at Holstein, and right after I finished that internship, I got a part-time job at Tony Soros. And then after I finished the Wake Tech program, Tony hired me full-time, and then was there for about 2 years, and then came here.
So you are the true Durham brewer. You've been at exclusively Durham breweries for your entire career.
Pretty much, yeah. Some of my classes at Wake Tech were, obviously in Raleigh, so they were at Big Boss. But a lot of my classes were with Brad Wynn. Got to know, which I lived at the time. I lived right down the street from Big Boss, so I was there quite a bit anyway.
They've got a great setup over there. They've got a kind of a fun thing with the game room, and I mean, tons of space.
Yeah.
So I guess going from the homebrew side to becoming kind of a commercial brewer, and then a head brewer. I mean, what was the biggest jump in there to kind of move over to real professional brewing equipment?
It's really learning the equipment. Like, it's so much different going from a 10-gallon pot on a turkey fryer to using stuff that's halfway automated, figuring out what pump to turn on when, what valve to open, all that kind of stuff, and then just learning the sequence of all that. Figuring out how not to spray yourself with hot caustic.
Yeah, I've also heard. I feel like most brewers that I've talked to at some point early in their career, they left a valve open that wasn't supposed to be open, and something really bad happened.
Yeah, I haven't had anything like really catastrophic happen, but have taken the clamp off the wrong side of the hose before. That was full of caustic. Luckily, it went the opposite way from me, so got lucky there.
I mean, people forget that that brewing on a professional level, that's a manufacturing job. It comes with plenty of potential dangers if you're not doing it the right way.
Oh, definitely. But, like lots of chemicals, lots of boiling water, lots of heavy lifting.
Yep.
Yeah, it's easy to get hurt here if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like I tell a lot of like craft beer, like enthusiasts that like if you haven't tried home brewing, you don't really have like a true appreciation for just how difficult the whole process is.
Yeah.
Like and you were talking about not having enough space. My first foray into home brewing was when I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment that was flexed into a 2-bedroom apartment in the financial district of Manhattan. And we brewed in our tiny little like apartment kitchen on an electric stove. And we did 5-gallon batches that we fermented in. We had like a cabinet that was, had like a solid door on it, so it was kind of dark and out of the way. And we just took up the entire bottom half of it with this fermenter bucket. And every time we did it, the entire apartment was covered in Star Sand for like 12 to 15 hours until we were able to clean everything up. And I think in 1.5 to 2 years of doing it, I think we made maybe 2 batches that we were actually semi-happy with. It was a challenge. So I dropped by earlier this week to pick up some beers, and I hadn't, with COVID and everything, I hadn't really been by in person too often over the last couple of months. And that the new location or the new tap room that's kind of connected to Beer Study now, the boot room, that thing is large.
Yeah.
So just a little story about that. So when we found the place here, and I went to the landlord, and I told her what I was trying to do. At that point, we did have a restaurant plan, and she goes, "No, you can't have a restaurant." There was like 5 or 6 restaurants in this location already. And so when the boot actually, which was an Italian restaurant, actually went out of business, it was kind of perfect for us to go in there and start running. So that's a separate business as well with the Beer Study.
And so the boot room is kind of another extension of Beer Study, correct? That's
exactly, yeah. It's actually, they changed the corporate structure and the LLC or whatever, and the boot room's part of the Beer Study now. So
okay,
that's the way it is. I stay out of it. I just want to make beer.
You know what? I think sometimes simplicity in a business is severely underestimated, but it can be a really powerful tool over time.
Well, any brewery owner will tell you, half of your time is spent filling out forms and keeping track of stuff, because you have to basically file excise taxes every month with the state, which is pretty darn expensive compared to other states. And then every quarter with the feds, which is not as difficult, but still it has to be done. And so you spend all your time dealing with that and all the other parts of it. Like whenever you make a beer, you have to send it in along with all the labels and stuff for the North Carolina ABC Commission to approve the product. And that has to be done before you can release anything. And anytime you want to change a label, you have to resubmit it to get the label approved, to make sure that, I mean, it's there to keep people from doing dumb things, but still, there's a whole lot of paperwork.
When I first learned a little bit about that process and having to file all of that every time you do a new beer or a new label, the first thing I thought of is some of these breweries that are like cranking out a new hazy IPA every like 5 days. And I mean, they must have, you know, 1 or 2 people that do nothing but submit new filings to the state or to the TTB for all these new labels and new beers that they're putting out.
Right. Well, the TTB doesn't do anything except for interstate. So if you're selling a beer in a number of states, then you have to have full approval of the label and the product. But if you're just doing North Carolina, then you just have to talk to the North Carolina ABC Commission.
Okay.
But and they used to charge $10 per product, but they stopped doing that, so it's all free. So yeah, certain people who are putting out 2 different IPAs every week, you know, you look on their list because the ABC has a listing of every product, and they might have 300 beers listed. You know, I think we've got 60, and I really don't. You know, it's just every little variation has to be filed. So.
I mean, it's 60 is a nice size catalog. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, how many barrels are you guys kind of brewing on an annual basis at this point in the facility?
Annually, it's most 700.
Okay.
And this last year was way below that. So that's basically what's going on. So yeah, it was a tough year for everybody, I'm sure, but it's actually going to be crazy now. As soon as everybody gets vaccinated, everybody gets healthy, and people are going to start turning out. You know, they were asking me the other day, and I said, when was the last pandemic we had? And it was a flu. And what happened after the Spanish flu epidemic? The Roaring 20s.
Yeah.
So it's coming, you know.
You know what? And look, I think the beer industry, I think bars and hospitality are going to do really well coming out of this because people have such an itch right now to get out, to socialize, to have that feeling of normalcy again. But I finished my green Buddha, and so I just cracked another one of kind of your classic IPAs. We got the Double Ipa. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about this one, which has got a nice kind of moderate haze to it.
We'll call that chill haze.
Yeah.
Although it is really wheat and rye, so yeah, it's chopped up grains.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about this beer and kind of the process that went into this one.
So that was the first one that I worked out to try to make something that was super hoppy, because when I was using whole cone hops, I was a pain in the butt. Mm-hmm. And so that's the one that I started submerging the hop bags with weights. And then I added the extra proteins of the wheat and the rye to try to hold onto the hop oils a little bit more in the solution than just the regular stuff. And then made it at 8%, so that kind of got it up to the right place. And it was really popular. It was crazy popular when I first started out. It's still pretty darn popular. Surfin Buddha sells like twice as much as anything. Then Duh probably sells more than anything else. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, when we make something new, like the next year, I think you got the crawler for it. That kind of goes crazy because we're already sold out of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's rare to have a brewery where, you know, your 2 best-selling IPAs are not a super, super hazy, opaque, you know, triple dry hop double IPA kind of thing right now.
Well, everything we make every IPA we make is essentially double dry hops. Mm-hmm. There's 2 processes for the hops, and basically temperature. We get the temperature right, cool the yeast, and then add the dry hops, and over 2 different periods. And so everything's double dry hop, but it's not like, I mean, we try to keep it, what would you say, like a pound a barrel for dry hop, maybe 2.
Yeah, depends. Some of them are around. Yeah.
Some of them are around 2, but there's no like 3 or 4 pound per barrel dry hopping going on, which is because basically what happens at the end of that, you don't have any beer left.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's a lot of yield loss when you've got all that vegetable matter that you have to deal with at the end.
It's already bad enough with our trying to help his schedule.
Yeah,
As
I
far
mean,
as you.
the interesting thing to me about Dub, I mean, like definitely has a more kind of stepped up malt base that's a little bit more substantial than Surfin' Buddha, and I think the bitterness on the back end is also stepped up a little bit. But I mean, it's kind of everything in unison, right? Like it's got that more substantial malt base, it's got the more substantial bitterness, but it also has a more substantial, hop kind of tropical fruit citrus thing going on than Surfin' Buddha. And so it's kind of, to me, it's like a natural kind of next step up from Surfin' Buddha, and just in terms of the intensity of everything that's involved.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just the rye gives it a little different flavor than most doubles.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, I'm a big fan of rye beers, like a good like rye porter, something like that. That's got that little like spicy element from the rye. Like that's a favorite of mine, and there aren't too many of them, I feel like, being brewed these days. But this is I drank the first one of these a couple days ago, and I feel like for an 8% double IPA, I drank it way too fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, I had it on in my kegerator at home, and it went way too fast.
Kegerator, that's a next level to drink through that fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I get a good deal on beer.
Yeah, we have a thing called end of line.
End of line. So, yeah. So that day, partial keg, it's only 3/4 full. Got to go somewhere.
Yeah, can't sell it. You might have some yeast in it. Nope.
You don't want to put that. You don't want that beer to go to waste.
No, we don't waste anything.
Gotta put it with a good home.
Yeah.
So we're drinking a lot of IPAs tonight, and you guys are definitely an IPA focused brewery. But I guess talking about some of the other stuff that you guys are brewing, maybe some other styles that you guys are kind of passionate about and having some fun with.
Well, Ken made this recipe for what we call Brahimian Pilsner, which is basically good German Pilsner malt with, and that's it. And then set name.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And the process, there's a, what do we call that? DSO rest?
DMS rest.
DMS rest, yeah. So there's a DMS rest that happens in it, and all of this other stuff to get rid of any corn kind of complexity to it.
It also helps it finish really dry.
Yeah. For something like that, I mean, how long are you guys fermenting a pills like that?
What is it, 7 weeks, 4 weeks? I mean,
depending on when the day falls, but it's at least 60 days.
Yeah.
But I think we did one batch at 6 weeks, which is like the bare minimum, but you probably shoot for 60 days.
Yeah. The brewing lager is a serious commitment.
Yeah, that goes pretty quick too. We're going to make another batch of that next week.
Yeah.
He just made a batch this week. So that you can look for those in April, May.
Yeah.
But because we're running out. But yeah. That and we don't make that many porters, although he did make a beans for breakfast stout, which with the naked oats, which worked pretty well.
Yeah, it's an oatmeal stout, so it's got 20% oatmeal in it and a little bit of golden naked oats.
Which is actually a malt.
Yeah.
Right, like a regular malt.
Yeah. Black malts, caramel 80. Mm-hmm. So it's got a nice like espresso dark chocolate taste. Finishes a little burnt, but it fits the style.
I would say that's not bad for a beer in that kind of range. I mean, to have a little bit of that. And I think one of the last kind of dark beers that I had from Starpoint was I think it was the Choco Taco.
Yeah.
Which I found really fun because you put Choco in it, and I think a lot of people instantly think like it's going to be this sweet chocolate beer, but I think it actually had this kind of cacao, like kind of drier chocolate to it.
Yeah, they were organic nibs. So, and we just all we do is microwave them a little bit to get them toasted nice and chocolatey before we put them in, and that's it. you can heat them up in a regular oven, which I think the first time we did it. But it's like, yeah, you just want to get them a little hot before you add them in, and it sits on them like hops.
And is that just for extraction to kind of soften them up a little bit?
What the heating up?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely to give them more of the chocolatey aroma flavors. Because otherwise, you get all of the other parts of the nib, which are basically stalks.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's kind of cool. I mean, you guys definitely play in the. It feels like you guys play kind of more in that classic range in terms of the styles that you brew, and you're like, less of, let's throw like 50 apple pies into the mash tun.
Well, and that was one thing that Eric at Mystery used to do, which I loved, which was to make a pumpkin beer with pumpkin pies.
Yeah.
That kind of thing I thought was hilarious and great. But no, we're definitely classic beer styles at this point. We made a foeder ale with Brettanomyces and all that, and that was a fun experiment. And that was actually a turbid mash and all that. It was crazy.
Oh, wow.
Sat in the foeder for a year and sometimes a year and a half. And we've got a bunch of that in cans. That's called Into the Mystic. The last batch, we actually added some peat to the puree stuff that you get from Morgan. So it's shelf stable. But
was that your first turnaround with kind of a foeder aged beer?
Yeah, that's we've still got a lot of cans of that. We did the 4-pack 12-ounce can kind of configuration on that, and we've still got a bunch. But that's not something we normally do. It's just we did it for fun because we had a foeder. I think we're going to take the foeder now, and we've been denaturing it for about 6 months now.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to get most of the bread out of it. It's got 8-hour hot ridge cycles going on and stuff that we can start putting in like a milk stout or something in there and use the chars.
Oh, cool.
And do that. So I think that's the next plan for the foeder, because sours aren't that huge a thing right now, except for fruited kettle sours. That's not something that I'm personally into, but I know a lot of people like it. A lot of people put lactose in their beers now too. We don't really do that.
There's no lactose sitting around in the Starpoint inventory.
We've used it,
Yeah.
right?
But we probably haven't used it in over a year.
Yeah, and we made a brew too with the Brute IPA. We tried that trend for a little while too. That we didn't dig that one either. So we don't make that anymore.
I think in my mind, Brute IPA was an appropriately short trend.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like and I get the idea behind it. I think it's an interesting idea, but I feel like the majority of the Brute IPAs I tried were just kind of harshly bitter, in a way that just like you wanted it to be dry, you wanted it to be light and easy drinking, and it just, I don't know that it ever really came across the way that a lot of people were hoping that it would.
Yeah, we actually spend a lot of time trying to make our beer not go down too dry, because our fermentation for some reason is incredibly efficient, and I do significant gravity. Most people do Plato. And so when we're at 1010, I'm like, whoa, that's a little too much. And sometimes it's 9, and I'm just like, that's just crazy. And so we've been trying to increase in mash temps and stuff like that in order to get a better final gravity reading that makes us happier.
And
do you think
that's like, do you guys have like a house like yeast strain that you're using that's just kind of
I use the Fermentus USO5, which is the old Sierra Nevada yeast, and then SO4, which is the old English ale yeast, and those are the base ones we use. Our Pilsner yeast, I'm not going to tell you, but it's really it's a Fermentus as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, we really like that. I've gone through a bunch of Pilsner lager yeast with different people, and this one I like the most. So we definitely don't do the kveik or anything like that yet. There's no like fermentations that take a day, or any of that stuff. But
5 days, 6 days, that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like, that's fast enough for us.
I'd like to say that's a pretty quick turn for a lot of things. So
Yeah.
well, if you put SO4 on a porter, I have never had a porter not spew over the bucket.
Yeah.
It's always a mess. I always put another bucket underneath the bucket because it always is a mess.
I think that's actually one of the funnier things about, I think, brewers getting more active on social media over the last couple of years is you have a lot of production brewers that are, constantly putting pictures and video out of things that are going on in the brew house. And I think exactly what you just said, like the number of people that post videos of porters and other dark beers that just blow the bucket out and you end up with kind of a complete mess on the floor.
Yeah.
Yep. Big old mess. But it's what happens.
Yeah. We got a few of those.
So how is it? It sounds semi-risky working with Brett in a pretty compact brewery over there. I mean, how did that kind of work itself out? And did you guys have to change anything dramatically to deal with that?
Well, when we started doing the Brett, I designated a bunch of hoses and valves and gaskets and all that stuff just to use for that. But basically, it didn't really have any contamination. Nico was working back then, and I think he had one thing where he made a mistake and it got a little contaminated. But we just dumped it, and we haven't had any problems since then. I mean, you got to heat stuff up. Yeah. Heat's the only thing that kills Brett. Star Sand will kill it too, but not that well.
I'll say if you can get into the nooks and crannies of whatever it is that you're cooking, using. I mean, I feel like, you look at some of the breweries in this area. I mean, the Bonds and the barrel cultures, like they're using whole separate facilities to play around with stuff like that because they're terrified of just how difficult it is to get rid of it and manage it.
Oh, you can get rid of it. Yeah, not really. That's like I said, this food. We've rinsed it probably 4 times now, and it's been sitting on Star Sand solution for a couple of months at least now. Yeah. So, and we'll do a culture off of that before we actually fill it up with something. Yeah.
So, if you denature a big foeder like that, I mean, let's say you fully denature it, you put a milk stout or something else in there. What's the foeder going to provide at that point? Given that it's, I mean, you've gone through an extended period of kind of trying to kill off any of the organisms in there.
It'll still have oak. It's still going to be wood.
Yeah.
And it's got a light char on it, so it'll still do what we want it. It'll be close to a charred barrel.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're treating it as, a charred barrel.
All right, so I'm pouring the big boy now. So we've got the newest one, the collab Gainstop. So tell me a little bit of this one because
I'll be right back.
There's a couple of participants in this, right?
Right. So it was Tyler McKinney, West End beer guy, and JD from Beer Study. He brought the donuts. That was his contribution. It was a little back and forth between me and Taylor. He originated the recipe, and then we kind of tweaked it to scale up from like a 10-barrel batch, a 10-gallon batch up to a 7-barrel batch.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a pretty straightforward, like West Coast double recipe.
Nice, so nice and clear, little kind of deep golden color.
Yeah, so it's all like 2-row and caramel 20. That's pretty much the base. A little bit of dextra in there to give it some head, and then it was Cascade, Centennial, Amarillo, Mosaic.
I'd say it has the kind of the Big C aroma to it. It's got a lot of that kind of like classic pine kind of greenness to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it turned out really well.
Ooh,
we had like the original recipe, it was going to be like 10%, so we had to dial it down a little.
I was about to say, I was like, when I pulled this one out, I'm like, all right, well, it's I mean, it is St. Patrick's Day. I'm like, but it's a Wednesday night, and I've got a crowler of an 8.1% classic West Coast, which I'm going to drink way too easily. But yeah, at 10%, this thing would be lethal.
It would, yeah. And you know, there's certainly a market for that kind of beer, but that's kind of the advantage of being with beer study. We see what the trend is, like what they're selling the most of.
Yeah.
So yeah, like super high ABV beers there's a market for them, but they don't go through them quickly.
You know, and I think that's one of the most fascinating things, like looking around the craft beer scene. Like, there's definitely a big focus amongst like real like craft beer fans on like these high ABV beers. I enjoy them, but in some ways I almost kind of skew towards the lower ABV stuff because I can have a couple of them and it's not like a day ender. You know, like St. Patrick's Day, like we were out for St. Patrick's Day over the weekend. Like, dry Irish Stout is just about a perfect beer. I mean, it's got all the flavor, it's easy drinking, and it's 4% generally, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, like I would much rather drink 2 or 3 6% beers than 1 10% beer and call it a day.
No, I'm 100% with you. Yeah, I mean, this to me has like a ton of like that Mosaic Centennial hop character to it. I'm always like, I don't know if this is just me. I know that people have written that they get this too. Like, to me, Mosaic, I almost always get a little bit of like almost like a blueberry thing going on. And I don't know why, but it's Mosaic like all the time.
Yeah, that's one of the flavor profiles of Mosaic is blueberry. So high quantities, especially if you add it during active fermentation, you try to get like biotransformation out of it, you'll get a lot of blueberry.
Do you guys mess around a lot with that and try to do kind of the biotransformation dry hopping?
We do a little bit on our hazings. We usually do the first dry hop when the gravity gets around 1025, and then do the second dry hop around 1018, which is usually like the next day.
Yeah, and then I guess at that point, are you just kind of tossing that batch of yeast after that batch, or are you actually able to clean it and use it again?
We toss the batch.
Yeah. Yeah, our hazes get a fresh pitch every time.
Yeah, I think one of the underappreciated kind of probably pains or cost points for brewing hazy IPA.
I don't think people realize like what goes into beers and like what gets reused and what is like one and done. So that definitely drives the cost of those up.
Yeast is probably the least expensive part of beer.
Yeah, right now it's all the hops.
I would say, it's hops, and I think one of the things that I'm very curious to see how this develops over the next couple of years is the craft malt piece of things. We have some great craft maltsters in the state of North Carolina, and they're making really unique product that a lot of breweries are trying to use, but I don't know that a lot of breweries have gotten really good about using it from a marketing standpoint. Like, you brew something with Citra and Mosaic and Galaxy and whatever else, like, you can sell that on a can and you can charge for it. I don't know that anybody's yet really mastered like selling locally, malted, whatever it is, Epiphany Foundation or whatever that happens to be, which to me it's like a no-brainer next step in the craft beer scene.
Yeah. Right now, I still think that the people who drink most of the beer in places like this are all hop-centric people.
Yep.
And So I would love it if people were more interested in malts. If you look at Surfin Brewing, there's like 6 different types of malts in that. And, that's when I started putting together recipes. I was all about the malt. And now everybody's all about how much hops you can stuff into it, or what kind of cryo you're using, or stuff like that, which is fun. It's a trend. Everything happens like that. But I would love it if we got back to using really good heirloom malts and stuff, and we're able to like take advantage of what Epiphany's got going on and craft maltsters are doing. That'd be great. But really, people want hoppy beers or hazy hoppy beer through the kettle sours. So that's kind of what we're up against right now. Now the dark beers, there's a lot of room there for us to start doing some experimentation on malts.
Yeah.
But seriously, we'll sit on a porter, even if it's a great porter, for twice as long as we'll sit on an IPA.
I think porter has a marketing problem too, because it's that dark beer, but it's not a stout, and everybody wants that big, imperial pastry stout or barrel-aged imperial stout, and so it kind of falls in that like weird region where it's not a light, easy drinking beer, but it's not the imperial stout that everybody's putting marketing dollars behind.
Well, here's a good one. So Guinness, like 4.8%, right? That they set aside a certain amount of that beer every time they brew it for 24 hours in the open air. So it's essentially got a little sour component to it. And that's part of the magic of Guinness, and not a lot of people know that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, those kind of things, which are probably accidents that occurred, 500 years ago. So that make a difference in the way that the beer is. So that kind of thing, I think, is really interesting. I like using craft malts a lot. It's not business-wise, it's kind of tough because you've got to change your grind. Mm-hmm. Because the kernels are smaller, they're seed malts, they're not regular whole kernel malt. And so you have to change the grind, and you have to, and they're more expensive, which, they're better. They should be more expensive, but still, you have to figure it out.
I mean, I think in a lot of ways it's a labeling and a marketing thing too. Like, and there are some breweries in the area. I think Full Steam is probably kind of on the forefront in terms of the label that they're using, like trying to advertise the craft malt usage, because you guys are paying more to use it for a beer, and without the advertising on the label, a lot of craft beer drinkers just don't know, and so they don't understand the price difference. They don't get why they should be paying that.
Well, we used to be talking about terroir and stuff like that. I'm using grain that is from the area to make beer of the area. I think Burial was hot on that a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And Faunaflora and people. But I definitely think that's great. And if you can do it and keep up with all your regular production of what your people really want, then definitely go for it.
I think honestly, I think we're heading that way. I do think that, like, I mean, look, America, I feel like America's always, as a craft beer scene, is always going to be hop weighted. We seem to be built that way. I feel like every style that gets brewed in America just gets the hop component amped up to 20. But I feel like, I don't know. I mean, I know that brewers are talking about, for years have been talking about kind of the craft lager trend and wanting that to be a thing. I feel like it's actually starting to happen a little bit.
I'm a big favor of craft lagers and pilsners. That'd be awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what the Brahimian is. Yeah. Really. And we don't make anything like that. I have some other beers I'd made a long time ago. Chapel Pills. Mm-hmm. I used to make this one called Ball Don't Lie, which is a Keller beer, which we'll probably make again, but this year wasn't the year for that.
No, I think you're spot on. Like, I feel like a lot of the craft beer world, like, this past year was the year to brew your go-to beers, the ones that are gonna sell.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially in the case of something like Surfin Buddha or Duh, I mean, they're your flagship brands. They're gonna sell, and they're IPAs, so it's kind of fits within the wheelhouse of what people are gonna. They know it, they trust it, they're going to buy 4 and 6 packs of it and bring it home because they can't come to the brewery and try 3 or 4 different beers in a sitting. But I mean, I'm all on the craft lager thing. I will say, from an ale standpoint, if more breweries brewed kind of classic English ales, I'm 100% there for that.
Yeah, pub ales, but we'll see. That'd be nice, but I don't know.
I think that one's a lot farther off. That's my own personal hope and dream is, there are like a handful of breweries that every couple of months will brew like an ordinary bitter or at least like a lower ABV ESB. And that to me is like the pinnacle of like the crushable sessionable beer that probably, like, local kind of high quality craft malt would do wonders in if you have the right one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a big part of like Brahimian is the flavor comes from using a high quality Brahimian Pilsner malt with low DMS, as low as we can get anyway. So there's definitely a difference than just using whatever your cheapest that you can get to crank it out. You definitely get a different layer in there than regular, like, whatever Pilsner malt.
Yeah.
I'm definitely, I want us all to experiment more with good local malts. That would be great if we could figure that out. And we've got, Epiphany over there doing a great job of making it.
I say Sebastian would be all on board for you guys messing around with more local malts. Yeah,
like I said, we just have to change the grind every time we use a local malt.
Absolutely.
Because the efficiency goes way down if we don't fix it.
No, 100%. So we are, hopefully on the path to kind of post-COVID, some sort of return to some level of whatever normal is at this point. But from a Starpoint Brewing perspective, I mean, what's in the plans? What are you guys kind of looking forward to and planning for right now?
For business wise, I just want to take advantage of the situation we're in, where we have a great facility to get everything done, and we have now a restaurant component that works with it, and then there's an events area where we can try to get some music going. But we can't do that until it's safe. And it's really important for everybody involved here at this business and everybody involved in the community to make sure that we do the smart, responsible thing and make sure that people are safe 100% throughout all this mess. Because we're going to get through it, but we have to take care of each other, right?
Absolutely. I'm 100% on board with you. I mean, to me, I feel very lucky that, in a lot of respects, the last year has been less impactful than for others, but I miss going out and being able to visit breweries and being able to drink beer in the setting in which that brewery really wants you to be drinking it and experiencing it. And, frankly, being able to support breweries by drinking on site and visiting. And I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
It's been a weird year spending most of the last 12 months at home. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I think people want to see each other. You didn't even realize it until you were able to actually talk to people or see people, how much you kind of needed it. Yeah. And I think that everybody's catching on to that one right now, too. So, I mean, there's good and there's bad, and we're learning what's good. I think it's important for us to do that.
Yeah. And I think Chris Creech from Glass Jug kind of put it best when we were doing a session for the last beer festival that we did. And he was like, I want that feeling of a full tap room and it feels good, not scary,
Yeah.
and it's real. I mean, I think more recently breweries are starting to fill up again. Because the weather's getting nicer, people want to get out. They want to be able to sit out and have a couple beers. but you feel it. If you're in the tap room and you're indoors and it starts getting crowded, everybody's tension level rises right now. And that's not a good feeling. Nobody wants that. I mean, everybody loves, pre-COVID, everybody loves the feeling of the full tap room, and you walk in and you feel the energy in the room, and you go have a couple good beers and a couple good night, a good night. But I'm ready to get back to that. I mean, that's I think what a lot of people are looking forward to, and I think it'll happen pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, it's already picked up.
Yeah.
So we're I guess at this point, let people know where they can get Starpoint beer, what they should be looking out for, because from a 90-second beer review perspective, I mean, we want people supporting our local breweries. We want people getting out there and trying local beers. So how can people do that best?
Well, for us, the beer study place is always the safest bet. We have beer at Whole Foods in the area, Weaver Street Markets in the area, Lowe's Foods in the areas. We work with all the beer dens, and they've been really great and helpful too. Then all the bottle shops, and Sam's everywhere. We make sure they have everything that they need, and hopefully they want what we have. So that seems to be working out. But definitely go to your local, store that you like to see everything there is, and if it's not there, just hit us up, info@starpointbrewing.com, and say you're not here, and we'll go there. Because we self-distribute right now everything except for the coast. So our beer is available in Nag's Head, all that, Growlers Go Duck, and all that stuff. So they just came and got an order. They kind of shut down for the winter time, especially this winter. But they just got another order, and it's starting to get busy down there as well. So you can definitely find us at the coast and all around RTP, and we're working on trying to get it into Greensboro and Charlotte a little bit more now too. So
no, I love it. Look, for everybody out there, especially if you're in the Triangle, Starpoint beer is definitely not hard to find. It's in a lot of these tap rooms. It's in a lot of these different bottle shops. Go out and support Starpoint beer. Tim, Ken, thank you very much for taking the time tonight to join me and just kind of talk a little bit about Starpoint, talk a little about brewing and beer, and trying a couple different fun IPAs. For everybody out there, thank you for tuning in for another Instagram Live Happy Hour. Again, we're doing these about once a week right now, and our focus is really on featuring different breweries in the area, making sure that everybody's aware of what's going on. If you've missed the ones in the past, they're available on our IGTV channel. And I'm a couple weeks behind, but we have a couple that are up on our YouTube channel. And the last couple will be going up hopefully shortly. So make sure you check those out. Keep an eye out. We'll be posting some more happy hours coming up in the next couple weeks. And Tim, Ken, everybody out there, cheers. And Tim, let's see you one last time before we hop on. There we go.
That's Ken. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Support all the local breweries. Drink local beer everywhere. Thank you.
Absolutely. Drink local. Have a great night. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, man. Take care.